You can just wait for our colleague that has just come to set up. Then we will proceed. Welcome. So just a few housekeeping things. I'll read from a prepared statement. Thereafter, we'll open up the floor for any questions. And then after that, seeing that it's a new year, we've prepared something that we can just share, just a drink, just to toast to the new year. But most importantly, we're so grateful that so many of you have shown up. We realize that this place is a bit small. We didn't expect such a large number. But on behalf of the Higher Education Authority, we are grateful that a lot of you have come, because any chance that we get to show the Zambian public what the Zambian government is doing through the Higher Education Authority in ensuring quality in higher education is a plus for us. So thank you so much for coming. And with those few remarks, we can get to it. So this is a press statement from the Higher Education Authority on the deregistration of Citizen University, Pamodzi University, and University of East and Southern Africa. The Higher Education Authority has, in accordance with the provisions of the Higher Education Act number 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23(3), forthwith deregistered Citizen University, Pamodzi University, and University of East and Southern Africa from operating as higher education institutions within the Republic of Zambia. These deregistered institutions have been gazetted in Gazette Notice number 27 of 2020, which was published on Friday, 10th January 2020. Following audits on these institutions, the institutions were, on the dates noted and for the reasons cited below, deregistered with the authority. Number 1. Citizen University was deregistered on 20th December 2019 because the institution abrogated the Higher Education Act number 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23(1)(b), which mandates the authority to deregister a private higher education institution if the private higher education institution contravenes any term or condition of the Certificate of Registration or any provision of the Higher Education Act. Number 2. Pamodzi University was deregistered on 20th December 2019 because the institution abrogated the Higher Education Act number 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23(3), which mandates the authority to order the closure of a private higher education institution where its proprietor fails to take the remedial measures determined by the authority under paragraphs A of subsection 2 of the Higher Education Act. Number 3. The University of East and Southern Africa was deregistered on 26 December 2019 because the institution had been closed for a period exceeding 6 months in accordance with the provision of the Higher Education Act number 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23(1)(e). Thus, the institutions had been directed to stop all operations and, according to the provisions of the Higher Education Act number 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23, 4, and 5, were given 7 days to surrender the original certificate of registration to the authority or risk being liable upon conviction to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years or both. The deregistration of these institutions continues to exclaim that the Zambian government is committed to ensuring that only HEIs that meet the set standards in higher education are allowed to offer higher education in Zambia to the fulfillment of the 7th National Development Plan by enhancing human capital development. Furthermore, in HEA's sustained efforts in ensuring quality in higher education, the authority will continue to conduct institutional audits to ascertain the continued compliance of registered HEIs to set standards so as not to compromise on the quality of higher education in Zambia, but to maintain it. Thank you so much. That was the prepared statement on the deregistration of the named institutions. At this moment, I will open the floor in case there are any questions or clarifications that you might seek at the moment. Sure.
Yes, my name is Zipporah Mshala from Movie TV. Yes, I'd like to know how many institutions you registered last year.
So, with regards to last year, we did deregister a number of institutions, and but what we did most importantly last year was that we recognized institutions that have campuses that are registered with us. As you know, as you might know, registration is very campus specific. So, in some institutions did move to certain places, and those institutions are not registered, but they are still higher education institutions. But what we did, service that we did last year was after we conducted audits that we will continue conducting, is that we ensured that we announced all the institutions that have campuses that are registered. So if you go to our website, hea.org.zm, all the institutions that are listed there have campuses that are registered. We did deregister some campuses, and we made that announcement. I'll be able to give you the names and details of those campuses, of those institutions, and we will continue. The point of the Higher Education Authority is not to deregister institutions, but what the Higher Education Authority wants to do is to be a player in higher education. But even though we are being a player in higher education, we must ensure that quality is maintained. So that's why we continue doing the audits, that's why we continue doing the inspections, and this is why through the audits that we conducted last year, these three institutions have been deregistered. But specifically to your questions, I'll be able to give you the names of all the institutions that were deregistered last year. And also, if you go to our website, you'll find all the names of the institutions that were deregistered last year. All right. Any other questions? Sure, please.
How many students are affected from those three higher education institutions?
So with regards to affected students, we do make provisions where we ensure that the students are not as affected. Like, for instance, if the institution is deregistered after it has already graduated students when it was operating, then what that will mean is that those students, their qualifications will still be recognized because the deficiencies are at the point of deregistration. So for these specific institutions, like as for UNESA, it wasn't operating for 6 months. For Citizen and Pamodzi, I will check on the numbers and I will get them to you just after the end of the press conference, because we're still putting everything together. Yes?
Yeah. Besides showing the defects which led to these institutions to be deregistered, you have not indicated as to whether or not these were given a chance to explain why they stay on this particular path. Were within the law to act before giving them right to behave.
Okay, so with regards to that, if I get your question correctly, you're saying, did we give them chance to respond before they were deregistered? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so with regards to that, the law actually provides for us to give them notice in writing, and then we give them 30 days, according to the Higher Education Act, for them to respond. So when we wrote to them with the intention of deregistration, they were given 30 days to respond to that. And as you can see with Pamodzi, it even clearly states that the proprietor did not put any remedial measures to the faults that were found after we did the audit. So all the three institutions were given 30 days, and as you can see for UNESA, there is the fact that it wasn't operating for a period of 6 months. So even with Citizen University, we did give them 30 days according to the provisions of the law for them to respond to the details of the audits that we had found. Any other, please?
So what was the common in these three higher education institutions? What was the common mistake that we are making?
What we like to do as a higher education authority, there is no one solution fits all, even like one problem fits all. Each problem is unique to each higher education institution, and we approach the higher education institutions as per individual institution. Like you have seen for UNESA, like has been stated, it wasn't operating for more than 6 months, so we had to close that off. But if you look at Citizen and you look at Pamodzi University, those are also, we look at them as separate entities, so we don't lump them together. Even the part of the act that we have cited is the part of the act that is specific to them. So like for Pamodzi, we gave them a list of remedial measures to do, but the proprietor of the university did not adhere to those, did not enforce those remedial measures. And also if you look at Citizen University, it also had its own deficiencies, which we looked at, which we addressed to them. And what we do is that when we do an audit, we write to the institutions and tell these are the deficiencies, these are the places where you have deficiencies according to the provisions of the law. And we tell them, okay, can you remedy these solutions? And we give them, like I mentioned, 30 days for them to come back. So, but what we do not want to do, and what we do not do as a higher education authority, is to lump institutions together, because those are individual entities, and because they are individual entities, we approach their problems uniquely. So there wasn't really one unique thing that I can say, let's lump them together, because that would be unfair to the institutions. Yes.
Now that these 3 universities have been deregistered, what's the process that they have to comply with if they want to come back and be registered properly again? Okay,
so with regards to that, since they are deregistered, now they're not higher education institutions anymore, they're just institutions. So now with any institution that wishes to operate as a higher education institution in Zambia, they have to go through the registration process again. And that means they have to submit the registration forms, they have to submit a minimum of at least 3 learning programs that we accredit, because those two go hand in hand with the accredited learning programs and the registration process. So they have to go through the registration process again from the get-go.
Now, when you say that, especially like considering the fact that you had to give some of them a 30-day period and some of them had different inconsistencies, do you then go back as the Higher Education Authority to ensure that the reasons for that deregistration are no longer prominent now that they're trying to register again?
Yes, we do that, but the most important thing to note is that once they submit a registration once they submit a new registration process, then we consider that as a new registration process. So we'll look at them at their merit, but we're also bearing in mind that they're also registered, and bearing in mind the issues that were prominent in the deregistration. But we don't consider them and say because they were registered, we deregistered them, so let's maybe be impartial in a certain way. No, we carry them with the strictest guidelines that we do every other institution that is newly registering. So we treat them as a new registration. They come through, we will judge them based on their merits, we judge them based on the criteria of registration, we judge them based on the criteria of the accreditation of learning programs, and thereafter we will determine whether or not they are fit to run as a higher education institution in Zambia. Any other questions, please?
Why do you think these higher education authorities, institutions, actually face such challenges that make them or cause them to abrogate the law?
Also, with regards to that, I cannot speak to them, because that would be overstepping our mandate. But what I can say, and what is very important, which we would like to exclaim as a higher education institution, as a higher education authority, is this: when we register an institution, we expect them to maintain and to stick to the standards to which we registered them. That is very, very important. That's why we continue doing audits with these institutions. We don't just register them and say, okay, sit there, we know they'll be perfect. No, we go back and re-examine them and make sure that they're sticking to the criteria to which we registered them. Because what we don't want is for the standards to fall. As to the reasons specifically in the institutions, I think the specific institutions would have to speak to that. But what we can say as the Higher Education Authority, that we will continue auditing these institutions. We just don't register them and let them be. We will continue auditing them and making sure that they stick to the standards to which we registered them, because it's very important. We cannot let the quality of higher education in Zambia drop at any level. It must maintain. No wonder we are here, no wonder our tagline is ensuring quality in higher education, because we need to ensure it, not just so that we can have a well-learned workforce, but also so that the job market can have confidence in the students that are being produced from these higher education institutions. Yes, sir.
I have two last questions.
Sure, please.
First, in some countries, before a person is granted the right to begin an institution, whether higher or general education, there are conditions attached to it. And one of those conditions is security. That when that particular person begins, then there will be no breach on those particular parts. For example, if I was to begin an institution that would be training lawyers, for example, then I need to show some kind of proof that the people that will be coming from my institution are not anyone who taught in general terms, but specific areas. Did you give those particular conditions to those institutions before they began, or maybe by the time the authority was enacted here, the institution already running? And second, maybe you can educate us what courses were being offered by these students.
That is institutions. Okay, so with regards to
Security.
the first question of security, if you look at like you said, were these institutions there before the authority came into being? Yes, there were institutions that were running before the Higher Education Authority came into being. But what happened is that after the Higher Education came into being, the institutions had to re-register under the provisions of the Higher Education Act. So even though there were institutions that were there before the Higher Education Authority came into being, after the Act was passed, after the authority was operationalized, they had to re-register. So that one, we sorted that one out. And then if you look at in terms of security, and if I got you correctly, you're looking at in terms of the criteria of how they should operate and everything that they should stick to. When we're registering an institution, we give them the criteria, and they go through them. And the reason why I keep mentioning the audits, the reason why the Higher Education Authority keeps doing audits on these higher education institutions even after we register them is so as to ensure that they stick to those set standards, the registration standards that we gave them. So if they're not sticking to those standards, there's no way we can say, okay, at point of registration you had met this, now because you're not sticking to them, so just continue operating. No, we have to apply the law. And so if an institution doesn't stick to that, we apply the law, and the law says we can impose remedial measures, and some remedial measures include deregistering an institution that is failing to put in place the actions that are needed for it to be rated as offering quality higher education in Zambia. And then in terms of the courses that were being offered by these institutions, and that comes together with the terms of the students that are affected. After the press briefing ends, I'll be able to share with you all that information. Any other question, please? Okay, thank you so much for that. Please note that before you leave, there's some drinks and some food in the boardroom that you can have some food. And for those ones that with follow-up questions, we can meet afterwards, and then I'll give you all that information. All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming, and have a blessed day. And one last thing, there's also one last form of housekeeping.